I've been thinking a lot about this idea that usually makes people uncomfortable, but it's really only because we're just not used to saying it out loud. And that idea is everyone is a perpetrator of something. We're fine with saying no one is perfect when it's convenient, and we're just fine with acknowledging human flaws when it helps us forgive someone we like. But the second you extend that logic to power, suddenly we just pretend imperfection just disappears. And that's where things start making sense to me. Because if humans aren't perfect, and we all agree on that, then why do we design systems that require us to believe that one person can just be fucking trusted with everything? So prepare for what I'm about to tell you, because I ain't gonna lie, I already know y'all gonna side eye the fuck out of me when I say this, but just hear me out. Presidency and public harassment should be abolished.
You need to leave. It's disgusting.
Let's slow that down. You might not even be directly hurting someone, but you're just benefiting from something that is. And this could just extend to something like just cheap labor. And granted, it doesn't make you uniquely as bad, it makes you human. And that's the key word here, human. So once you accept that every human is capable of harm, even unintentionally, the next question should be obvious to me. Why do we keep pretending that there's one human rational enough and just morally consistent enough to run an entire country? Like, make that shit make sense to me. This is where people usually get uncomfortable because you already know niggas would rather be complacent in themselves when it comes to actually examining their moral beliefs, but that's besides the point. But like I said in my last video, the shit isn't even about left or right anymore. It's about the role itself. My general issue on the reason why I'm making this video is the presidency as a role. Presidency as a concept just assumes that moral authority can scale. That one person can make big decisions affecting millions of lives across the fucking globe and somehow not let their bias or ego or pride shape those decisions. And we already know that's not how humans work. We wouldn't even trust individual people with that kind of power in everyday life. But for some reason, when you slap the word president on it, all of that shit goes out the window. Hey man, even though I don't fuck with these niggas in power, I kinda see what drives them to do it, I ain't gonna lie, because we be so unaware, it's kinda just like a free come up to these niggas. Your average homeless nigga can even tell you that voting and politics were made to divide in the first place. But what we don't talk about enough is how that's not accidental. Modern politics isn't designed to create collective understanding or anything like that, it's designed to create sides. You're not encouraged to deeply understand systems, you're encouraged to pick a team, which is red or blue, left or right, us or them, if I should say. Because division is easier to manage than unity, and they are very aware of this, so that's why they do it. And once things are framed that way, division isn't really intentional, it's almost like inevitable, I ain't gonna lie. Then people start anchoring their identity to their vote, not because they want to, but because they think that's the only leverage that they're given. When your only form of participation is selection, your beliefs naturally harden around that choice. So at that point, disagreement doesn't even feel like a discussion anymore, it feels like a threat. So people defend positions that they're unsure about, and they also justify harm as something that is unfortunate but also necessary. Not because they're brainwashed, well, kinda, but because the system doesn't leave much room for uncertainty. What voting quietly trains people to do is prioritize winning over understanding, and that's not a moral failure, it's a structural one. So instead of asking, is this system good? People end up asking, which side is less dangerous? And then from there, it creates a path towards permanent tension. And this is essentially why the idea of a president fits so neatly into all of this. Voting funnels millions of different fears and different hopes and just contradictions all into one symbolic human being. Someone who's expected to represent everyone while also inevitably prioritizing some people over others. When that happens, we don't talk about the system that forced the compression, we talk about the person. Such as, was he competent? Was she moral? Did they mean well? So presidents become this weird symbolic sponge in a way. They absorb blame so the public doesn't have to look at the system. They absorb praise so people can feel represented without also participating. And they also absorb moral responsibility so everyone can stay passive. And when things go wrong, which they always do, we argue about whether this particular human was good or bad instead of questioning why we built the system that required human sacrifice in the first place. Because that's what it is, I ain't gonna lie. We keep feeding flawed people into these roles that demand perfection and then just act in shock when they fail. So, when your average homeless nigga says, politics divides us, I think it's because it was built around human limitations instead of human reality. It assumes that people can handle life-changing choices under massive pressure without letting fear, loyalty, or self-preservation take over. But that's just not how humans work. which loops back to my original point. If humans are flawed, and we are, then the issue isn't that politics get messy sometimes. The issue is that we keep building systems that require humans to be more stable, more consistent, and morally clear than they ever been. And then we act surprised when shit just goes fucking left. This is why I don't think the problem is that we quote unquote haven't found the right president yet. That idea in itself assumes the issue is selection, not structure. Like if we just elect the right person, shit would just be just sunshine and rainbows again. Like everything would just magically work out. But that's a fantasy. Even the best human beings on earth would still have bias, they will still have fear, they will still have ego, they will still have loyalty conflicts. They're human. And the moment you give that person, I guess, the power of presidency, you've guaranteed harm at such a large scale. Not because they're inherently bad or anything like that. I mean, they could be bad, I'm not discrediting that, but it's really because power amplifies humanity, not transcends it. I can even give you a prime example of this. Predator catching. But to be specific, the new norm of predator catching.
Say I'm never gonna meet up with children again.
Never gonna meet up with children again.
And before anyone twists this, people who prey on children deserve serious consequences without question. I'm not defending child predators in the slightest, and I don't believe that they should be protected, sympathized with, or even excused. What I'm questioning is the structure that pred catching has turned into, and what it reveals about power. Because pred catching, as it exists now, isn't just about accountability. I think it's become a socially approved outlet for unchecked authority. The same logic people use to excuse mass harassment is the same logic we use to excuse centralized power, just inverted. Not because one person is evil, but because responsibility dissolves in the crowd. Now, if you look at predator catching culture as it is today, predator catchers are put in a position where they hold moral authority over another human being. And because the target is just someone who is universally condemned, almost anything that happens to that person after is just framed as justice. So, you see these niggas getting their ass whooped and thrown around like rag dolls.
Hey, stop! You don't pick up kids and
We need you to apologize for what the fuck you doing.
stop! Hey, you picking up childs?
No!
You picking up little childs?
No!
No, listen me. No, no, no. No, I not do that.
Give me that shit. Hey, give me that shit.
What's it?
Give me that water.
Oh, yeah.
And the public cheers, not because the process is ethical, but because the target is hated now. That's a dangerous precedent, because once someone is given unchecked power and moral immunity, you're no longer just testing justice anymore. You're testing human impulse. And humans don't suddenly become pure when they're given power. Not because the person holding the power is just a uniquely bad person, it's just because they're human. That's the part that people don't want to sit with. Predator catching created a space where people can just act out their worst impulses through another human being and just be praised for it, as long as the label child predator is attached to the actual crime. The media decides it's acceptable, the platform rewards it, and the system just excuses it. So suddenly, accountability just poof, disappears again. This is why it connects directly to how we treat presidents. Same logic, just different terminology. Both cases, the system creates a moral distance. Unchecked authority, even over the worst people, reveals how fragile our ethics actually are. And if power corrupts, even when the target is universally despised, that should just already tells us everything we need to know about trusting humans with absolute power at the highest levels. And this is where people usually get me mixed up and thinking I'm saying just no leadership at all. No, that is not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is, nigga, you're the method. Y'all niggas get on the internet doing all that raw off their Democratic parties and shit like that. They looking at that shit and straight up laughing at y'all niggas. Like I had said earlier, I don't really fuck with Trump or any of them niggas, but I honestly see why them niggas move the way they move. It's dead ass a free come up. Hey man, I'm not arguing for chaos. I'm not arguing that people shouldn't govern themselves. I'm not even arguing that coordination isn't necessary. I'm arguing that no human being should be elevated above the collective accountability. The presidency isn't just a job, it's a myth. It's a myth that one person could carry the moral weight of millions. And once you see it that way, it's hard to unsee. What really be getting me though is how selective we is with that logic. Because we so goddamn quick to say humans are flawed and shit like that when someone does some bullshit on the internet. Or we tend to always say that nobody's perfect when it comes to protecting someone we like. But we never let that same logic dismantle the systems that demand perfection from individuals in the first place. We accept imperfection as long as it doesn't threaten power, and that's backwards to me. If anything, imperfection should make us more suspicious about concentrated authority, not less. And look, I'm not pretending I'm outside of this. I'm a nigga too. I wouldn't even trust myself with that kind of unchecked power. So if I accept that I'm capable of causing harm without intending to, then why would I ever believe someone is just exempt just because they won an election? And like I said earlier, that's just uncomfortable for most people because it means we just can't point upward anymore. It means at the end of the day, responsibility comes back to the general public. I don't think presidents should exist. Not because humans are terrible, but because they're human. And we're all perpetrators to something. And if we're just so serious about harm, accountability, and responsibility, then I think the most radical thing we could do is stopping the worship of roles that was never designed for flawed beings in the first place.